There is a moment you have probably noticed. Maybe it happened in a meeting when someone attacked your idea and you felt your chest tighten. Maybe it was a text message that sat unanswered for hours while you spiraled into anxiety. Maybe it was a casual comment that cut so deep you replayed it in your mind for days. You feel everything, and while you were drowning in emotional noise, you watch others move through the world untouched. They brush off insults, they walk away from chaos, they seem immune to the very things that paralyze you. What if I told you that the difference between you and them is not that they feel less, but that they have mastered something you were never taught? What if the most powerful people in history were not emotionless robots, but strategic architects who understood a truth society hides from you? Niccolo Machiavelli, the man history painted as cold and ruthless, did not teach people to stop feeling. He taught them to stop letting their feelings control them, and that distinction changes everything. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will understand why emotional control is not about becoming heartless, it is about becoming untouchable. You were raised on a lie, a beautiful, comforting, suffocating lie. You were told that being sensitive is a gift, that empathy is strength, that feeling deeply makes you human, and you believed it because it felt true, because when you cried at movies, when you felt other people's pain, when you stayed up at night worrying about things you could not control, people called you caring, they called you thoughtful, they called you good. But let me ask you something. How many times has your sensitivity been used against you? How many times have you been called too emotional when you raised your voice in frustration? How many times have manipulators seen your empathy and weaponized it? How many times have you been told to calm down, to stop overreacting, to let it go, while the person who hurt you walked away unaffected? You feel everything, and the world punishes you for it. Think about your last argument. Did you win because you had the better point? Or did you lose because your voice cracked, because your anger made you incoherent, because the other person stayed calm while you unraveled? Machiavelli observed this centuries ago. He watched princes fall, not because they were weak in strategy, but because they were weak in emotional regulation. Compassionate rulers were overthrown by those who saw kindness as exploitable. Honest leaders were destroyed by liars who remained composed under scrutiny. He wrote in The Prince that a ruler must learn how not to be good, not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness without power is suicide. You have been conditioned to feel first and think second. School taught you to raise your hand and share your feelings. Therapy culture taught you to express everything immediately. Social media taught you that your emotional reaction is valid, no matter how disproportionate. But no one taught you how to sit with discomfort. No one taught you that the gap between stimulus and response is where your power lives. Ask yourself right now, when was the last time someone used your emotional reaction to discredit your argument? When was the last time you regretted what you said in anger? When was the last time your feelings made you look weak? Your sensitivity is not the problem. Your inability to control when and how it emerges is. Have you noticed how the people who hurt you most are often the calmest? How abusers gaslight you by staying rational while you break down? How manipulators win arguments not with logic, but by watching you lose composure? This is the game, and you were losing because you were never taught the rules. Now, pause. I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if only to yourself. Have you ever noticed how your empathy has been used against you? Write it in the comments, because this is not just theory, this is your life, and recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking it. Let me be clear about something. Feeling is not weakness. Machiavelli never said, "Do not feel." What he said was this: do not let your feelings dictate your actions in moments that require strategy. There is a difference between experiencing an emotion and being possessed by it. You can feel anger without lashing out. You can feel fear without freezing. You can feel sadness without collapsing. The Stoics understood this long before Machiavelli refined it into political doctrine. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Emotion is data. It tells you something is important. Anger signals a boundary violation. Fear signals potential danger. Sadness signals loss. But data is useless if you cannot process it clearly. When you react immediately to emotion, you hand control to whoever triggered it. The person who insulted you now controls your mood. The rejection you fear now controls your decisions. The anxiety you feel now controls your day. Machiavelli saw that princes who reacted emotionally to every betrayal, every insult, every threat were predictable, and predictability is vulnerability. If your enemies know that insulting you will make you rage, they will insult you before every negotiation. If they know rejection will paralyze you, they will withhold approval to keep you weak. Control is not about suppression. Suppression is when you bury the feeling and pretend it does not exist. That leads to explosions, to passive aggression, to chronic stress. Control is about conscious delay. It is the ability to feel fully, acknowledge the emotion, and then choose your response based on your goals, not your impulses. Think of a general on a battlefield. If he panics when the enemy charges, his army scatters. If he rages when his soldiers desert, he loses focus. The general who wins is not the one who feels nothing. He is the one who feels everything and acts anyway. Machiavelli advised that a prince should appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, and actually be so, but he should have his mind so trained that when it is necessary not to practice these virtues, he can change to the opposite and do it skillfully. Notice what he said: appear and be. Feel the virtue, but train the mind to override it when strategy demands. This is not hypocrisy, this is sovereignty. You are not broken for feeling deeply. You are untrained for operating in a world that rewards those who can weaponize calm. If you have made it this far, you are not like the others. Most people would have clicked away by now. They would have felt uncomfortable with the idea that emotions can be controlled because it threatens the identity they have built around being sensitive. But you are still here, which means you are ready for what comes next. And I promise you, what comes next is what separates those who understand from those who transform. So how do you actually do this? How do you move from being emotionally reactive to strategically responsive? Machiavelli did not leave a step-by-step manual, but his principles, combined with modern psychology, give us a framework. There are 3 pillars. Master these, and you will never be controlled by your emotions again. Pillar 1. Observation without identification. Most people do not observe their emotions, they become them. When anger arises, they do not think, I am experiencing anger. They think, I am angry. When sadness comes, they do not say, sadness is present. They say, I am sad. This is a catastrophic error, because when you identify with the emotion, you lose the ability to examine it. Machiavelli was a master observer. He studied human behavior not from within the chaos, but from a cold, analytical distance. He watched how people reacted to fear, to flattery, to power, and because he observed rather than participated, he could manipulate those reactions. You must do the same with your inner world. When you feel rage building, do not say, I am furious. Say, there is fury here. When anxiety spikes, do not say, I am anxious. Say, anxiety is present. This linguistic shift creates psychological distance. You are no longer the emotion, you are the one observing it, and the observer is always more powerful than the observed. Neuroscience supports this. Studies show that labeling emotions reduces their intensity. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, activates when you name what you feel. The amygdala, the emotional center, calms. You are not suppressing, you are witnessing, and in that witnessing, power returns. Pillar 2, the strategic delay. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote this after enduring unimaginable suffering. He realized that even when everything external was controlled, the one thing his captors could not take was his choice of how to respond internally. This is the gap Machiavelli exploited relentlessly. He never reacted in the heat of the moment. He waited, he calculated, he observed how others moved, and only then did he act. You must build this gap deliberately. When someone insults you, do not respond immediately. When you receive bad news, do not react instantly. When fear grips you, do not let it dictate your next move. Count to 5, breathe twice, walk away for 60 seconds. The delay doesn't have to be long, it just has to exist. In that delay, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What do I feel right now? 2. What do I want to achieve in this situation? And 3. Will my immediate emotional reaction help me achieve that goal? If the answer to question 3 is no, you have just saved yourself from self-sabotage. Machiavelli wrote that wise princes avoid being hated and despised above all else. Why? Because hatred and contempt arise not from what you do, but from how you are perceived doing it. If you lash out in anger, people do not remember your point, they remember your loss of control. If you collapse in sadness, they do not remember your pain, they remember your weakness. The strategic delay protects your image, your influence, and your power. Pillar 3, the mask of wax. Machiavelli was ruthlessly pragmatic about appearances. He understood that how you are seen often matters more than who you are. But here is the nuance most people miss. Machiavelli did not say, be fake. He said, be adaptable. The mask is not a lie, it is a tool. When you are negotiating, you do not show desperation, even if you feel it. When you are grieving, you do not collapse in front of those who would exploit your vulnerability. When you are afraid, you do not broadcast it to competitors. This is not dishonesty, this is tactical presentation. Think of it this way. A surgeon feels empathy for the patient on the operating table, but if he lets that empathy make his hands shake, the patient dies. So he puts on the mask of clinical precision. He feels, but he does not let feeling interfere with function. You must do the same. In moments that require strength, wear the mask of composure. In moments that require authority, wear the mask of certainty. In moments that require distance, wear the mask of indifference. Your internal world remains yours, but your external presentation serves your goals. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But he clarified, a prince should avoid being hated. The mask ensures you are respected, not resented. When you control how others perceive your emotional state, you control how they interact with you. And that is power. These 3 pillars work together. You observe your emotions without becoming them. You delay your response to choose strategically. You present the version of yourself that serves your objectives. This is not cold. This is architecture. Now we arrive at the most important realization of all, the one that most people will reject because it destroys a comforting illusion. Machiavelli did not teach emotional numbness, he taught emotional precision. The myth is that powerful people feel nothing. The truth is that powerful people feel everything, but they choose when and where that feeling matters. Look at history's greatest leaders. Churchill whipped privately, but projected unshakable resolve publicly. Lincoln suffered crippling depression, but governed with steady clarity. Marcus Aurelius felt the weight of empire, but wrote in his private journals, not in his public decrees. They did not eliminate emotion, they contained it. They channeled it. They weaponized it. When Machiavelli advised princes to be both fox and lion, he was describing emotional range. The lion feels rage and uses it to intimidate. The fox feels fear and uses it to stay alert. Neither suppresses, both deploy. Here is the paradox that will transform you if you let it sink in. The people who seem to feel nothing have simply mastered the art of feeling in private and acting in public. They do not cry in the boardroom, they cry in the car. They do not rage during negotiations, they rage at the gym. They do not collapse under pressure, they collapse after the deal is done. This is not repression, this is timing. Emotion expressed at the wrong time is a liability. Emotion expressed at the right time is a weapon. Think about this. If you show vulnerability to someone who respects boundaries, it deepens connection. If you show vulnerability to a predator, it invites attack. Machiavelli understood that context determines whether an emotional display strengthens or weakens you, and because he understood this, he never let his feelings dictate his strategy. He let his strategy dictate his feelings' expression. Most people live the opposite way. They feel, then act. The powerful act, then allow themselves to feel. You are still carrying the belief that if you control your emotions, you lose your humanity. But humanity is not found in reactivity. Humanity is found in choice. Animals react. Humans respond. When a dog is hit, it bites immediately. When a human is insulted, he can choose to ignore, to address calmly, to retaliate strategically, or to walk away entirely. That choice is what makes you human. Machiavelli did not strip humanity from princes. He gave them the tools to protect it, because a prince who collapses emotionally every time he is betrayed will not survive long enough to do any good. You cannot help people if you are destroyed by emotional blow. You cannot lead if you are paralyzed by fear. You cannot protect those you love if you are controlled by those who hurt you. Emotional control is not the absence of care, it is the presence of discipline. And here is the final insight that ties everything together. The reason you suffer emotionally is not because you feel too much. It is because you have not learned to separate feeling from meaning. When someone insults you, you feel hurt. That is natural. But then you add meaning. You tell yourself, this means I am worthless. This means I failed. This means I am unlovable. The feeling was temporary. The meaning you attached made it permanent. Machiavelli saw that princes who took every criticism personally, who internalized every betrayal, who attached cosmic significance to every setback, were the ones who fell. The princes who survived were the ones who felt the sting but refused to let it define them. You must do the same. Feel the emotion fully, acknowledge it, but do not let it write the story of who you are. When rejection comes, feel the disappointment, but do not conclude that you are unwanted. When failure happens, feel the frustration, but do not decide that you are incapable. The emotion passes. The meaning you create either frees you or imprisons you. So let me ask you one final question, and I want you to sit with this. If you could feel everything you feel right now, but never let it control your decisions, never let it weaken your presence, never let it hand power to those who do not deserve it, would you still call that cold, or would you call that mastery? Most people will continue to react. They will continue to be controlled by whoever knows which buttons to push. They will continue to lose arguments, not because they are wrong, but because they cannot stay calm. But you now understand that feeling nothing is not the goal. Controlling everything is. Machiavelli's cold rule was never about being heartless. It was about being strategic with the heart you have. Write in the comments right now, what emotion do you struggle most to control? Fear? Anger? Anxiety? Let's build this conversation together, because if you made it this far, you are ready for the deeper work. If this video shifted something in you, subscribe, because what comes next goes even further. And if you are ready to continue this path, watch this next. The choice is yours. React or respond.